Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're joining us today, you probably already know that business is almost never a smooth, straight line up and to the right. Every single venture, I don't care how successful it is, hits a wall eventually. Maybe it's a pivot that just didn't land, a totally unexpected market shock, or a massive operational breakdown, and yeah, it hurts. It's incredibly stressful. But what actually separates the companies that completely fold from the ones that bounce back even stronger? Well, it all boils down to having a highly structured blueprint for sustainable growth. So today, we're exploring a framework that takes a raw, messy business crisis and transforms it into exactly that. Let's figure out how to build our way out of the rubble together.
To get there, we're going to follow this exact roadmap. Number 1, diagnosing the core issue. 2, the 5 recovery pillars. 3, tactical rebound strategies. 4, accountability and tracking progress. And finally, number 5, future-proofing your venture. The goal here is to treat recovery not as some chaotic, panicked reaction, but as a measurable, step-by-step construction project.
Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, Diagnosing the Core Issue, Clearing the Rubble Before You Rebuild.
Before we can pour any new foundation, we literally have to clear the site. And that means taking a hard, totally objective look at the financial, operational, and reputational hit your business just took. Now, it is absolutely crucial to distinguish the surface-level setback from the actual root cause. You literally cannot fix the visible issue until you isolate what's underneath it. Think about it. If your core issue is a sudden drop in customer retention, right? That's just a symptom. The root cause might actually be a recent supply chain shift that completely tanked your product quality. If you just throw a bunch of marketing dollars at the problem to win people back without fixing the supply chain, you're just pouring water into a leaky bucket. We have to draw a hard line between the symptoms we see and the actual disease we're trying to cure.
Once you drag that root cause out into the daylight, the very next step is setting concrete recovery objectives. And no, this is not just a wish list. Every single objective has to map directly to a strict time frame and a measurable indicator of success. So instead of throwing out a vague goal like, we need to make more money, a true objective sounds more like, we're going to increase monthly recurring revenue by 15% by the end of Q3. You have to know exactly what successful stabilization looks like so you actually recognize it when you cross the finish line.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 5 recovery pillars, laying the foundation.
All right, with the site cleared and our objectives locked in, we're shifting into the foundational phase to look at the strategic framework needed to rebuild this business piece by vital piece. Here we have the 5 strategic pillars: financial stability, operational efficiency, customer trust, team resilience, and market positioning. And what's really interesting about this slide is how it covers every single vital organ of a functioning company. If you ignore even one of these pillars, the whole structure stays compromised.
You really have to think of these pillars as a deeply interconnected system. To hit financial stability, the overarching goal is regaining profitability. For operational efficiency, it's all about immediately cutting out cost and waste. Under customer trust, we've got to rebuild confidence from the ground up. Team resilience, that's about re-engaging a workforce that frankly might be totally burned out or scared right now. And finally, market positioning requires us to step back out there and reclaim our brand credibility in the wider industry. So, those are the broad strokes of our foundation.
All right, let's pick up the pace and jump into Section 3, Tactical Rebound Strategies, the construction phase. We've got our foundation laid, now it's time to actually build. We're shifting from the macro strategy level right down to the actionable micro tactics of execution.
Let's start with the financial rebound initiatives. We're talking strict expense optimization, aggressive revenue diversification, sourcing new funding, and totally revising your pricing strategy. But here's the real kicker. Every single one of these actions absolutely must have an estimated cost, an expected ROI, a specific owner, and a hard deadline. Because let's be real, an action item without an owner and a deadline is really just a suggestion, and suggestions do not rebuild businesses.
Let's move to and see how this builds out on the operational side of the house. Your operational recovery touches your supply chain, your product or service delivery, quality control, and your tech infrastructure. Look, if your tech infrastructure melted down during the crisis, fixing it isn't just about calling IT and hoping for the best. It requires strict KPIs and rigid timelines. Like, who exactly is fixing the servers? When are we hitting 99.9% uptime? And how exactly are we measuring that?
Next up is the market and customer recovery plan. We can break this down into customer retention, acquisition, brand communication, and channel strategy.
Look, rebuilding customer trust isn't just some vague, warm feeling. It's a measurable science. We are actively tracking it through retention rates, acquisition costs, and brand communication metrics. By assigning a clear target outcome and a KPI to your channel strategy, you're making sure your message is actually landing with the exact people who need to hear it right now. Section 4. Accountability and tracking progress, the foreman and the inspectors. Now, I want to ground us for a second here. The most beautiful, perfect blueprint in the world is utterly useless if you don't have leadership acting as the foreman on site, making sure the crew is actually doing the work, holding the entire team completely accountable. This brilliantly illustrates how the C-suite divides and conquers that accountability. Just notice the cadence here. The CEO is handling overall strategic oversight every single month, but the CFO? They're tracking liquidity bi-weekly. Because when you're recovering from a crisis, cash is literally oxygen, so the CFO is checking the tanks constantly. Meanwhile, the head of HR is checking in on team morale every quarter. Every leader has a specific responsibility, a defined metric of success, and a set reporting frequency. No stepping on toes and zero things falling through the cracks.
So what does this actually look like on a timeline? Recovery is a distinct chronological journey. Phase 1, that's the first 3 months, is pure stabilization. Just stop the bleeding. Phase 2, months 4 through 6, is optimization. You're stable, now you get efficient. And finally, Phase 3, months 7 through 12, is growth preparation. You literally do not try to grow in month 2. You survive, you optimize, and then, and only then, do you prepare to scale again.
I want to pause real quick to highlight a vital term that should honestly be written in giant letters on the whiteboard of every recovering business: monthly burn rate. This is the rate at which your venture exhausts its cash reserves each month. To put that into perspective, running out of cash is historically one of the absolute top reasons startups fail. This is the literal pulse of your company. You have to monitor this monthly, religiously. If your burn rate is too high, you're going to run out of capital mid-rebuild and the whole shebang collapses before you even sniff Phase 3.
Right alongside your burn rate, you need what I call structural integrity sensors. These are your other key health metrics: percentage of revenue growth, employee retention, your net promoter score for customer satisfaction, and your brand sentiment score. Tracking these ensures that while you're in the weeds fixing the finances, you aren't accidentally alienating your team or your most loyal customers. Transparency is basically your best friend during a rebuild, and that means having a rock-solid communication plan. You absolutely must over-communicate your recovery wins. Employees need monthly town halls just to see the roadmap and feel secure. Investors, they need those quarterly reports to trust their capital isn't vanishing. Customers need ongoing reassurance on social media, and your partners need bi-monthly review meetings. Remember, silence during a crisis breeds panic. Structured communication breeds confidence. Okay, moving to our final phase. Section 5, future-proofing your venture, the weatherproofing. We've cleared the site, laid the foundation, built the structure, and passed the inspections. Now, we have to protect this newly rebuilt, highly optimized business from the next unexpected storm. This is where risk management becomes absolutely critical. We're literally predicting the next set of disasters so we can actually survive them. Ask yourself, what happens if there's a delay in our execution? What if funding suddenly dries up, or the market completely rejects our new pivot, or we face mass employee disengagement? By calculating the likelihood and the real impact of each of those risks today, you can assign an owner and formulate a mitigation strategy right now. You are not going to get caught off guard twice.
Now, part of weatherproofing is also doing some deep internal reflection. Truly surviving a crisis means taking a hard and, sometimes painful look at past failures to uncover actionable insights. You've got to review your internal processes, your product offering, the effectiveness of your leadership, and the real health of your workplace culture. Look, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. You have to use the lessons it taught you to continuously improve all 4 of these areas.
So, the crucial point is that recovery doesn't just happen by accident. It is a commitment. If we synthesize everything we've explored today, a successful rebuild requires aligning recovery priorities across the entire team, aggressively chasing down those key chronological milestones, consistently hitting your strategic performance indicators, and ruthlessly enforcing leadership accountability. That is your commitment statement. Ensure maximum organizational alignment right here, and I promise you, your blueprint will hold strong.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Look at everything we've just constructed. I want you to ask yourself, how will this recovery plan not only restore your stability, but actually position your organization for future innovation and sustainable growth? Don't just look at this framework as a survival manual. Treat it as the ultimate permanent launchpad for your venture's next great chapter. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey,
Good luck with the rebuild.